The letter promised everything. A quiet home on a hillside, a man named Henry Callahan, who had lived through enough to know how to be kind, a roof that did not leak, and 7 chickens for fresh eggs. He even wrote that there would be a rocking chair by the fire, where I could finally rest. I was 28, orphaned, with nothing left but a handful of worn clothes and a hope that still whispered of second chances. So I packed what little I had and boarded a train west. I pictured him waiting at the station, maybe holding a sign with my name or a flower plucked from the side of the road. Instead, when the train hissed to a stop at Dry Valley Station, the only one waiting was a boy. He could not have been older than 11, barefoot in the dirt, his eyes the color of dusk. "You, Beatrice?" he asked. My throat tightened. "Yes." He nodded. "Henry is dead. Snake got him. 2 days ago." The words hit like stones. I shook my head. "No, that cannot be. He wrote me." The boy looked down. "Yeah, wrote it after the bite. Said maybe you would still come." My hands clenched around the handles of my suitcase. All I could taste was dust. "Who are you?" I asked. "Caleb," he said. "I am his oldest." I looked around. No carriage, no wagon. Just endless silence and the echo of a promise that had died before I arrived. "How many of you?" I whispered. "6 now," he said. "Used to be 7, but my sister died last winter. Baby is still nursing." I turned toward the train. The conductor called for final boarding. I turned back to Caleb. He was standing like stone, staring up at me, waiting without begging. I breathed deep. "Where is the house over the ridge? Is it big? No?" he said. I nodded. "That is fine. I am small." We walked in silence for nearly a mile, the wind scraping across the ridge like it was trying to warn me. Caleb carried one of my bags without complaint, though his arms shook beneath the weight. The land stretched out in every direction, dry grass, splintered fences, and sky that looked too big for any one person to carry. I kept glancing sideways at him, half hoping this was some cruel misunderstanding, that Henry would appear with a laugh and call this a test of faith. But no one came. When the house finally came into view, my heart sank. It was smaller than I had imagined, one room, wide a porch, with crooked boards, a door that hung sideways, and a chimney that looked like it was held together by grief alone. Inside it smelled of ashes, boiled beans, and damp wool. The baby was asleep in a wooden crate near the fire. The others, thin, dirt-smudged and silent, sat around the table like they were waiting for something to come through the door. Caleb placed my bag near the hearth and pointed to the empty chair at the head of the table. That was his. I stared at it for a long second. Then it stays empty. A girl with wild braids and a wooden spoon stood guard by the pot of stew. "I am Ruth," she said flatly. "I stir things. Mama used to before she bled out after Jonah." I nodded slowly, not knowing how to breathe much, less respond. The pot held thin broth, 2 beans, and 1 sad potato cut into too many pieces. I knelt beside the fire, pulled out the last of my salted pork, hidden since Kansas, and dropped it in. A handful of dried herbs from my coat pocket followed. The smell changed everything. Even the baby stirred. I ladled the stew into mismatched bowls and passed them out. "Eat slow," I told them. "Let your stomach remember it." And something shifted in that moment, not with words, but with warmth. If you believe family is something you choose, not just something you are born into, type "yes" in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Later, after they had eaten and washed with cold water in a tin basin outside, I stood on the porch alone. My stomach was empty, but I let it stay that way. That night, I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I had come to marry a man. Instead, I had been claimed by a ghost and 6 fragile souls who had no one else. That first night, I barely slept. The fire snapped and hissed behind me, while the wind scratched at the windows like it wanted in. Inside the cabin was heavy with unspoken grief. The children, bellies full for the first time in who knows how long, slept curled like question marks under patched blankets. I sat on the edge of the porch, with my shawl-wrapped tight eyes trained on the east ridge. That was when I saw it, just a thread of smoke rising against the dawn sky. Not chimney smoke. Too dark. Too deliberate. My heart clenched. Someone was out there, watching. When Caleb came in from fetching firewood, his expression matched mine. "That's not ours," he said flatly. "And no one else lives that way." I asked how often riders came through here. "Hardly ever," he answered, which meant whoever they were not passing through, they were waiting. That night, I kept the stew boiling longer and told Ruth to keep the baby close. The air inside thickened. The younger boys picked up on the change. They did not ask questions, just got quiet, the way children do when they sense something is wrong, but have learned not to speak of it. I wrapped the barn latch, split clean off its hinge in the corner of my apron, and did not mention it. There was no lock on the door, just a wooden beam we could drop across it. It did not feel like enough. After the children went to sleep, Caleb sat beside me again. "You think someone's coming?" he asked. I nodded. "And not for good reasons." He was quiet a moment, then said, "You would leave if it meant keeping us safe, right?" I looked at him. "No. I would fight first." He studied my face, then said something that stopped my breath. "You do not look like a fighter." I answered softly, "That is what makes it work." Just then, a flicker of movement darted past the tree line. A tall man on horseback. He did not come closer, just watched, then vanished into the smoke. I did not sleep that night. I stayed by the door, holding nothing but a kitchen knife, and wrote a letter by candlelight, not to anyone I knew, just a prayer for what I had begun to protect. By morning, the smoke had vanished, but 2 hens were missing, and the woodpile had fresh boot prints, heavy ones, not Caleb's. I said nothing to the children. They were laughing again, chasing each other barefoot through frost-kissed grass, and I could not bear to steal that moment from them. But the sense of being hunted stayed with me like a shadow stitched to my spine. I was feeding the baby his morning mash when the rider returned, not from the East Ridge, but from the South Trail. He dismounted slowly, not like a threat, but like someone who had already lived through his share of sorrow. "I am looking for Henry Callahan," he said. His voice was rough-lined with regret. I stood up, shoulders back. "He died. Snake bite. 2 weeks ago." The man removed his hat, nodded solemnly. "That is what I feared. I am Nathan Callahan, his brother." Caleb stepped forward, frowning. "Pa never said he had a brother." "That sounds like him," Nathan muttered. "We did not part on kind terms." My voice tightened. "So why are you here now?" Nathan opened his saddlebag and pulled out a wrapped bundle. Inside was a ledger, identical to the one I had found beneath the hearth. But this one was full. "He wrote me letters," Nathan said quietly. "Every month." I never answered. Until the last one. He said he was sending for a woman, not for him, but for his children. Said he wanted them to have a heart in the house, not just a roof. He turned the last page of the ledger, written in Henry's shaky hand. "If I die before she arrives, let her keep the house. Let her raise them if she chooses. If not, bury this letter with me and forgive me for hoping." I felt the air leave my lungs. This was not just a coincidence. He had planned for this. For me. Nathan reached into the bag again, pulling out a small brass key. "To the safe beneath the floorboards. It is not much, just what he saved." I took the key, tucked it deep into my apron, and nodded. I did not need to say the words aloud. My silence told him everything. I was not going anywhere, not because I was chosen, but because I had chosen them. That night, after the children had fallen asleep with full bellies and warm hands, I waited until the cabin was still. Then I lit a single candle, knelt by the hearth, and pried up the floorboard Nathan had pointed to. Beneath it was a small iron box, its edges worn smooth from time and hope. The key fit easily. The click was soft, but to me it sounded like a promise finally kept. Inside there was no gold, no land deeds or money, just a folded sheet of paper and a cloth pouch tied with a faded ribbon. I unfolded the letter slowly. At the top, in Henry's handwriting, "To the woman who says yes, even after she knows." My hands trembled. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone. And you came anyway. You have more courage than I did. I did not send for you out of loneliness. I sent for you because I was leaving, and I wanted them to remember what it felt like to be held. If you turn around now, I would understand. But if you stay, then everything I have, however little, is yours. The house, the land, and if they allow it, the children. Not because I chose you, but because I trusted you would choose them. I closed my eyes. His words fell into me like seeds planting something I had not known I could grow. I opened the pouch. Inside were 7 buttons, each different. 1 bone, 1 wood, 1 carved, 1 chipped. I knew what they were. Tiny tokens from baby clothes, a mother's keepsakes, a life stitched together with thread and love and loss. I placed them back gently, reverently. No one would ever see them but me, and that would be enough. The next morning, Jonah, our second youngest, woke with a cough. By noon, Ruth was pale and quiet, her lips dry, her steps slow. I recognized the signs. Fever, fast and cruel. I boiled water, mixed herbs, sang lullabies my own mother used to hum when I was sick. And still by sundown, 4 of them were burning up. When the baby stopped crying altogether, my blood turned to ice. I held him against my chest and rocked through the night, whispering lies I needed to believe. You will feel better by morning. But I knew the storm had only just begun. By the second night, the fever was a living thing inside the cabin, breathing through the floorboards, whispering through the rafters. Ruth collapsed near the wash basin and did not open her eyes for hours. Caleb stopped pretending to be strong and finally asked, voice shaking, "Is she gone?" I pressed my forehead to hers. "Not yet," I whispered. "And not today." Nathan had returned just before dawn, bringing salt pork firewood and a look on his face that said he already knew. He stepped inside, took one glance at the room, and without a word began to help. Together, we built a steam tent with boiling water and patched quilts. I forced broth between tiny lips, wiped sweat from foreheads, and sang until my voice cracked into silence. Even Caleb, the last to fall, began to burn. I held the baby against my chest when his breath grew too shallow to hear. Then, on the 4th night, I dropped to my knees beside the fire and prayed loud and ugly to whatever might be listening. Take anything else, I begged. Just not them. That was the moment everything turned. The fire surged. Ruth opened her eyes. Jonah asked for bread. The baby whimpered, and Caleb, too weak to lift his head, looked at me and said, "You stayed." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. There was never a day I would not. I slept beside them that night, arms wrapped around the ones who had once seen me as a stranger. And when the sun rose, I did not feel like a visitor anymore. But peace does not last long when the world is watching. Word had traveled faster than we knew. By the end of the week, 2 men arrived at the gate on horseback, one with a lawman's tone, the other with the smirk of someone who already saw what he wanted. They came with a folded paper and cold intentions. No wedding, no rights, the tall one said. The children are unclaimed. I stood tall, my voice steady. I have a letter, a ledger, and witnesses. But he leaned forward, sneering. You have no name here. Behind me, the door creaked. Caleb stepped out, Ruth beside him, rifle leaning against her shoulder. She has a name, Caleb said. She is our mother now. The men froze, not because of the rifle, but because of what Ruth's stance meant. It was not a threat. It was a truth carved in silence. You have no legal claim, the shorter one barked, clearly rattled. This land was in debt. These children are wards of the county now. I stepped forward, placing a steady hand on Ruth's shoulder. This house may not have a deed with my name on it, but it was built with hands that bled for it. These children are not abandoned. They were found. By me. Nathan appeared at the edge of the barn, shotgun slung across his arm like punctuation. He said nothing. He did not need to. The men backed down, muttering about judges and returns with papers, but we knew they would not be back. Some walls are held together by more than nails. That winter, neighbors began arriving, not to take but to give. A sack of flour, a pair of boots, a widow's dried apples in trade for kindling. And then, one December morning, a girl no older than 16 stood barefoot at the gate, holding a baby wrapped in torn cloth. She did not speak. She did not have to. I saw my own shadow in her eyes, starved, unsure, praying not to be turned away. I opened the door and said the only words that mattered. You are not late. You are right on time. The house became more than shelter. It became a place people whispered about, where no one knocked, because everyone knew the door would open. And the children. They stopped whispering at night. They laughed. Loud. Often. Without apology. If you believe family is something you build, not something you are born into, then share this story, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more stories that remind us home is not a place, it is the people brave enough to stay.